agenda. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. Yeah, so we did introductions. So hopefully all of you have seen, and I'll pull up again. The last time we met, we had talked about what we wanted to do for a collaborator showcase poster at the Global Symposium in October. And so one of the things we'd kind of come up with is the idea that there is a continuum of the process of developing a survey. And at various points along that continuum, you have an opportunity to map to OMOP or prepare mapping to OMOP, and that we would kind of associate progress that other groups have made in mapping their surveys to OMOP to that sort of progression, and kind of share out what resources are available so far for other people wanting to take on this endeavor. And so I put together a draft, and thank you, Tamara, for your feedback. I'll show you what I did with it. And so basically kind of trying to look for any additional feedback to that, and also feedback for what I did to address Tamara's comments, and then talk a little bit more about what we need for the poster and our next meeting this month. So let me grab slides, which hopefully, yeah, cool. Sometimes doesn't always transfer. So this was the original diagram. And again, having click issues. All right, and again, sort of the idea was these are the steps. These are processes in those steps related to producing the survey, and also where you might produce products related to mapping to OMOP. And then I was trying to convey, and then these are some of the resources that are produced at each of these steps. But Tamara had the very valid comment that this can actually be much more cyclical. And you're also tend to be in multiple phases at the same time. So I tried to put the same kind of information into more of a cyclic diagram, and also with the idea that the same resource might be produced at multiple steps. So then I kind of created a central resource spot with the same kind of information. And then I kind of looked at this and I thought, that's kind of crowded. Would it be better to just have this diagram and then elsewhere kind of describe what's going on in each of these spaces and the resources? So that's kind of where I am now, and I am definitely open to thoughts and feedback. So Tamara, I'll start with you. Did this kind of address what you were looking for?
I do like this better. I think we could probably have these be arrows that are directional in the circle, but that's probably just, fiddling with PowerPoint is annoying. But now you have a data.
I have to admit, I've been using the little templates, and I was looking for one with arrows, and basically I could get arrows or I could get the central circle, but I couldn't get both. And so, but I agree at some point, maybe I'll just have to go with the arrows and then add the circle manually, so that we do kind of have direction to the flow.
Right. But I like it. I think this better kind of portrays the life cycle. I'll point out that as of today, you have an actual expert in how to organize data who's sitting virtually right next to you. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this. I like this cyclical one better too. It does make more sense. I am not good at PowerPoint at all, so I will not put any ideas into how to get the wording in there and not have it overwhelming, but I do like this representation better than the original too.
Yeah, and I guess there's the possibility, right? Because we're thinking about the scale of a poster. I don't know if I could do like a circle around a circle, or, I don't know, scale it to make it bigger in the way the poster. But I don't know. I also didn't want to, when I looked at this, it was kind of overwhelming. And I'm like, is there a way to just convey the cycles and then elsewhere list what's happening at each, or do sort of a hybrid where we have the cycle, but keep the center with resources that are produced from this process. That might be another way to do it. Like get rid of the text in here, but
Right. Or
keep
move
the
the text
text there.
outside the circles, all the little bullet
Yeah.
points. Because also, at the moment, I'm really OCD. Like they're all different sizes and they're
Yeah,
kind of
and I
not
couldn't get it
aligned.
to
And
be the same because, like, if it's
Mm.
little to like, yeah, it was making me crazy. So that's a good point too. If there's a way to add text boxes outside, so it's not so well, there is a way to do it, but I just have to like scale things so that yeah, the text because that was bugging the hell out of me too. It's not you, Tamara. It was, but then I also didn't want to keep futzing with it if we didn't know this is how we want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was bothering the heck out of me. It's just like there's got to be a better way to do this.
Can I see the first diagram again?
Yeah.
I kind of like how the resources are separate. I know you said that like the same kind of thing gets produced at each stage sometimes, but it's also some stages just produce one thing, or some
Mhm.
things produce only at one stage.
Yeah.
Um, so I wonder if there's a way to make this with more information, just put some more arrows in it and make it a cycle again, right? Like
Yeah.
have the,
I mean, that's possible too.
and then
You
have
could
the
do
little
the go,
offshoot.
the
Here are the
back
resources.
loops,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Um,
back loop it.
So you could always try an arrow that goes back this way. And that is a good point too. Like one of the things I was hoping to get some feedback from Jim, because one of the things, Jim Lacey, who's on here occasionally, but one of the things he's mentioned earlier in the year was that they were developing a new survey. And so, one of the things that's a possibility, and that's why I put it up here, is you can pre-map, right? You could either create your survey from known mapped, question answer pairs, or you can do the mapping as you're doing the survey. And I thought so that's why I put that in there. Like that's an option. You can, it doesn't have to be after you've collected the data. And especially like once more resources are available. So for example, Diane, your group has made a lot of progress in your mapping. When those are showed, if people wanted, to use those question answer pairs, depending on, if there's proprietariness for the questionnaires or what the questionnaires are, they could just say, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And you have that piece up front as opposed to where it typically happens is, after you've got the data. And then I was going through when I was working on the brief, I actually went through and tried summarizing some of the data from the landscape assessment we did, as well as, Diane, what you've said, and Piper, and all of us as well. And nobody, literally, like no one who's able to do the mapping used all standard vocabulary. And so I find that like it cannot be done just with standard vocabulary. So I thought that was interesting. So that's why I put those in there. So basically you can do standard, non-standard, or custom, which also kind of becomes non-standard once it's in Atlas, and other people
Mm-hmm.
can use it as well.
Yep.
So anyhow, so yeah, I'll think about it some more. I do like that feedback about the resources. Um, and yeah, since we'll be working together more frequently, Michelle, we can also talk about other ways we might be able to diagram this out. But yeah, so, and then the other thing I really need for the poster are more details. So I think Diane, I appreciated your blurb, but I gave some feedback, like if there's ETLs or GitHubs that are ready to share out. Because I think part of what we want to do is show the community there is work going on in this area. There are some resources available. We're trying to pool those under this work group so that you can find them. Because I think
Right.
it's been really interesting looking at the response. I don't know if any of you are on the community calls, but if you look at the response for the Atlas surveys versus our landscape assessment, totally orders of magnitude different. And I think part of that is because not that many people are doing the surveys because it's such a struggle to do it. But those who are, we want to make sure they're part of what we're sharing out in the list so that people know those resources are available.
Yeah, I'm working with our IT to get a outward facing
Awesome.
GitHub. So hopefully that'll become, it gets tricky in July because of all the PTO. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that that'll be up relatively soon.
Yeah. Do you have a ballpark ETA?
No, I know that the main person I need to talk to is back this week from vacation. So I'm hopefully going to pin him down at some point this week and ask him how big of a project it is going to be for them. It shouldn't
Okay.
be too bad. I just don't know where I fall in the queue.
Yes.
That's the big question.
Yeah, I certainly understand that. And yeah, and part of the reason I'm asking because you know, the poster isn't until October. So even if I don't have links until, I don't know, a couple weeks before when I'm preparing the poster, that's fine. So if that's like a reasonable goal, that would be good to know. Or if it's like, yeah, you're not in the queue until November, Diane, then that would also be good.
Oh yeah, no, 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 no. It's going to definitely be by the end of the summer for sure. It's just a matter of getting it live. We're
Hmm.
working on content and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
hopefully will us working on content and them getting the whole back end done will kind of
Merge. Yeah.
merge by the end of the summer. We'll see.
Well, that's exciting. That's a lot
Yeah.
of, yeah, that's cool. Thanks, Tamara. Yeah, I didn't hear from Brandy directly, so I need to follow up with her. She did share the original survey development publication in the survey, but I am not finding as much about, that's more about the development of the survey and not so much the OMOP process. So I was
Right.
trying to find more about that. Because honestly, I think that in and of itself is worth publishing. Um, but I will follow up with Randy. Um, okay, yeah, so I will take the additional feedback and keep working on this and then share out. And then the last thing on the agenda, and hopefully I can remember enough of what was going on to be helpful because we haven't talked about this for probably since May. Here's my agenda. Here we go. One of the things, so basically, the vocabulary team is aware of the situation where we've got all this non-standard vocabulary that's been created and that is necessary if you want to map surveys. And so there's a process within the vocabulary team of making a non-standard vocabulary become standard. And so we had an initial discussion basically with the leads for all the stakeholders. So Claire Blacketer with the CDM, several people from vocabulary, Christian, to talk about kind of what is this process and then what are sort of our guidelines for mapping. Are we mapping question answer pairs? Are we mapping facts? What kind of analyses go with those things and so on and so forth. So we had a meeting back in May that Christian had joined us for where we talked a little bit about the differences between those. So those should be in the minutes and recording for May, which you can find on the wiki. I'll put it back in the chat after this meeting. So anyhow, some members of the vocabulary team, Masha, Vlad, and Oleg, are going to come to our next meeting and basically explain some of the differences and the implications between doing the question answer pairs versus sort of the fact object for the mapping, so that we can give feedback. Thank you. I see your little things pop up. So we can so basically we can give feedback as the survey subgroup as to what we think the vocabulary group should be doing. So I just wanted to make sure we prepared a little bit for that meeting, maybe review the stuff from the May meeting. Like I said, I will share a link for that afterwards and just kind of have some questions on hand. So I think they'll kind of give an overview of the differences and then we'll have time for question answers. I don't know why this styles pane's coming. There we go. So they're coming on July 22nd, which is our next meeting. And that is the last thing I had on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wanted to talk about? We were fast today.
Has anybody talked about copyright for any surveys?
No, that nobody's talked about. But yeah, for like the proprietary clinical
Mhm.
validated survey type things.
Yeah.
No, but that would be good. Like I know, for the mapping stuff, they have like an agreement with SNOMED for using those vocabularies, but I have not heard about the proprietary for the clinical ones. And I know there is an HIV and climate change group that is working with clinical surveys. They don't attend these meetings, but I've been in touch with the person who's organizing that. And that would be a good question for her. So, yeah, because I'm not sure if it's what the concerns with it are.
I only bring it up because for CDISC, for SDTM terminology,
Mhm.
we have to get written permission from the copyright holder to even create terminology for the individual items
Oh,
in those
interesting.
copyrighted surveys.
Yeah.
Um, there's not a ton of copyright holders that have come back and said, you know, uh, absolutely not, but there are some that say, I don't want the items up there for the general public to see at all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So there have been, a decent size or a decent number of surveys that we've not been able to create CDISC terminology for even because of that. So I didn't know if anybody had thought about that at all or been able to talk to people or if there's a policy within the Odyssey
Right.
community
Yeah,
regarding
and
that.
that's a really, really good question because I don't know. Like I said, I'm aware of it relative to snowbed terminology,
Mhm.
but not to the larger, yeah, some of these surveys are proprietary. And then also it's sort of unfortunate, if you create a resource that would be helpful for others, but then you can't share it out because
Yep,
the producers of the survey don't want you to. Um,
right, right.
But
which is
how many
really too
places
bad.
that like in like are these surveys that are used more in like kind of very specific like clinical settings or like are
It
larger cohorts?
it could be really anything. I mean, even the MMSE, we recently did terminology for that, but we're not allowed to share it on the CDISC website. We can put a README that says, terminology has been created, but if you want directions on how to use the terminology, you have to go back to MMSE, to them, and they will provide it for you. So we've gotten the gamut of everything from the really small surveys that are maybe only a couple of questions that are very specific to very specific clinical trials to surveys that are bigger and are more broad in their disease outreach. So it really just depends on what the copywriter holder wants to do with it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sometimes they don't really understand what we're trying to do, and that
Yeah.
causes a lot of confusion as well. They don't understand that we're trying to take away from their survey or from them getting that recognition. We're trying to help. And
Yeah,
Yeah.
to make it
Yeah.
more
so,
usable and accessible.
yeah,
I
yeah.
wonder, in the list of things we might want to think about doing as a group, if maybe we need to create some educational materials for things like that, or, something.
Mhm.
Obviously, OMOP and Odyssey is complex, but there's got to be a way to simplify it, like, you know, we harmonize, and then it can be mapped to these, and then everybody who takes your survey can share data, and isn't
Yep.
that lovely? And maybe you might want access to that data, and OMOP would let you do that. And
Yep.
maybe there's a way to do that, create some educational materials.
It could be helpful. I mean, it's amazing how many people don't understand the benefits of harmonizing data.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just don't get that concept. The other thing that we've done, so for our database within CPATH, we have a front-facing platform that they can go on. They can look at all of the variables that we have in each of the data sets that we have on our platform. So for survey data that we know is copyrighted, we have actually tried to kind of come away with a way of paraphrasing the questions and maybe just trying to make them not be exactly word for word.
Mm-hmm.
Paraphrasing, making them shorter, doing abbreviations of some kind to
Yeah.
make it not be word for word those items. We don't have copyright permission from all of these places. It's an arduous task. It's not straightforward.
I
It's
can
not
only
easy.
imagine how,
Yeah,
because it's also probably one of these things where the request happens infrequently enough. They don't have protocol for making decisions. And so they
right,
got to figure out, like, what does this fit in with their policy? Who do they need to talk to? Yeah.
right, right. So we've tried to do that as a way of safeguarding us from we're not trying to do copyright infringement.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
but scientifically and logistically, that's awful.
Yes.
Right? Like if
So
you
what?
that's
Yeah.
terrible. Oh my God.
So what we've tried to do to get around it is, the survey questions, it's a validated instrument that has a name.
Mm-hmm.
So our
Yeah.
terminology, uh, or the way it's not terminology, it's the way we uh, show the variable out to the world. It has the survey name, and then it has an abbreviation for the question. So that if you understand the survey and you have the survey, then you know which question we're talking about.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no other way that we can
Yeah.
work around
I
Yeah.
that.
And
wonder
it's just
if
if
you,
someone takes that, boy.
Yeah, I know it's a
Yeah.
hard balancing act, but we don't have copyright permission from all of
Right.
these
Right.
places,
oh,
and so we're
yeah.
trying
So
we're
you don't
trying to
even,
save.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because what I was going to say is, I wonder if there could be something, like, in terms of, like, governance around access. They're the things that, like, you can share freely, and the other stuff, if, like, the user got copyright permission from the source, then they could also use what you've created, but they would have to have that. But if you don't have the
Yep.
copyright permission either, then that's not a helpful.
Yeah, and it's hard to keep track of all of that. Those are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of moving pieces, and we're trying to make it easier for people to collaborate and use data across diseases and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. So it's a huge juggling act. That's not easy. It sounds easy in theory, but
Oh, it doesn't sound easy. It sounds hard. And if it sounds hard, then it must be even, like, really, really hard.
yeah,
Like, yeah, yeah, I feel like I wouldn't, yeah, that's challenging. It's awesome that
very
you're putting the work in, though. Like, I think it just says a lot about the mission and how important it is when people are willing to work that hard to try to harmonize and share out that harmonization.
right. We're trying.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Oh, but it sounds like you put in the work. But thank you for sharing that comment. I will bring that back to other leads and see if they're aware, especially Claire. She'd probably be the person I would ask about that first. And if she doesn't know, she knows who would know. But I think that's a very good point.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. Well, thank you for joining this morning. If you think of something you want to share later, feel free to reach out. Like I said, I will find our notes from the last chat we had about the vocabulary and share that out so you can think about questions and things we want to talk to that group about when we meet next. And then, is anyone here going to the Global Symposium? Okay, bummer. Okay. So
Yeah.
but anyhow, um, yeah, hopefully one of the things we'll talk about after this is kind of some of our goals. So we have two opportunities to share out at the Global Symposium. One of them will be the poster, and then the other will be the workshop. And so what I'm hoping for about the workshop is getting, the CDM team and the vocabulary team there like all at the same time talking about this, as well as people who may be working on surveys or have done surveys that have not reached out to us either through the landscape assessment or this meeting yet. But we can talk a little bit more about that as it gets closer. So, all right, well, thank you. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll talk to you soon. Oh, we just had somebody pop up. I'll stay on for a minute to say hi to John, but you guys can hop up. Hi, John. We're
Hi.
actually just
Thanks.
wrapping up. We got done a little early today.
Oh, I thought this was a 10 o'clock meeting.
Oh, no, 9:30 to 10:30.
Oh, okay. Okay. What'd I
Yeah.
miss?
Yeah, so mostly just trying to get ready for the collaborator showcase and an upcoming meeting with the vocabulary group. So
Okay.
I will share out in this chat the links to the last meeting. So we had a meeting back in April or May where we've started having these conversations with the vocabulary team about what kind of needs to happen as far as non-standard vocabularies becoming standard, because the standard vocabularies are not enough for mapping the surveys, as well as like also starting to develop some like best practices and recommendations around it. So one of the things that came up in earlier discussions was whether we want to do the mapping as question answer pairs or as sort of fact objects, which is more typical how it works with the EHR data. And so the members of the vocabulary team are going to come or join our meeting on the 22nd to kind of go into more detail about those choices. So they're looking to the survey group to make a recommendation. And so, but when we talked about it before, nobody felt like they had enough information to make the decision. So they're gonna come and talk to us about that on the 22nd.
Do you know of any documentation that talks about best practices for how to model survey data in the CDM?
Not yet. We're trying to put that what I'm trying to do is kind of pull together sources that exist for the collaborator showcase, and I'm struggling. So there's lots of times they're not done yet, or they can't necessarily share the ETL. Diane Corey, who is just on, they deal with a lot of proprietary surveys and trying to find ways to share out that harmonization. So I'll pull this up for you because I don't.
Yeah, you're not the first person to give me that answer.
Yeah. So one of the things I was trying to do in getting ready to write up the brief and do the poster is at the last meeting we had talked about sort of defining the continuum of survey development. And then, at what points can you map to OMOP? What kinds of products are a result of that process? And then get examples of those to share out as part of the poster. And so, generally we've got this going on, after data has been collected, but we had a member of the team, Jim Lacey, who works with the California Teacher Study, is launching a new survey. And so one of the things they've talked about is actually doing the mapping a priori. So either, looking at question answer pairs that have already been mapped in OMOP, or trying to create their own mappings, at the beginning. So we do have some people who've presented. Alex, I'll share the wiki links if you want to go back and see some of the presenters we've had over the last year. So we've had some people present about their process. All of us, basically created their own vocabulary to do this. And then Diane Corey, who was just on this call, and another woman, Piper, their groups have actually been trying to map using both the standard and non-standard. And Diane thinks she's going to have outward-facing GitHub with the ETL to share before we have the global symposium. And then I need to follow up with Piper. And then there's also a group working on HIV and climate change that has a set of clinical surveys that they've mapped. So I'm trying to get permission to share out their GitHub and their ETL. So what I think we'll probably end up with by the time we have the poster is just some information about ETLs and their associated documentation for where it's been done. And then this meeting that we'll have with the vocabulary group next week, is really where we're going to start trying to define best practices. Like, how do you start tackling this problem when either it's not being done or everybody's doing these as one-off efforts, that kind of thing. So, yeah. And are you going to be at the Global Symposium?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yay, good. So I want some people from the team to be there. So one of the other things that we're going to be doing is having a workshop. So hoping to get together like in person, people who've either done this or are working on it, and kind of share out what we figured out so far and get some feedback on to like where we could go next. Do they have resources we don't know about? That kind of thing. So
Excellent.
yeah, we're definitely not as far as people who are just starting this would like us to be, but getting that feedback as to like what you need and where you are, and also trying to dig up the people who are sort of quietly doing this and get them to share out their stuff will help us start getting some footing.
Yeah, like I said,
Yeah.
it's challenging. I
Yeah.
appreciate how challenging it is to get, like you said, people have all sorts of data use agreements and other limitations that prevent them from making a lot of this stuff easily shareable. And you run into roadblocks like that a lot. And they're off doing their own work. They have their day job that they're focused on.
Yeah,
So
there's other things that have to happen. And the other thing we talked about a little bit too is maybe what we, as a group, one of the things we need to do is develop some educational materials as to like what harmonizing does for you as the creator of this proprietary survey and why you should let us share that out. Because I think it's hard when you're trying to explain it yourself, but maybe if we again kind of group source putting together the educational materials, we could have a handout or a video or something, for when you're trying to deal with, proprietary surveys.
So what non-proprietary surveys have you been looking at?
So a lot of people just do custom surveys. Like they start with something that's been published or proprietary, and then they modify those enough that it's not anymore. Or, one of the things, we had happen. Now, part of the development of the Connect surveys happened before I was on board. But one of the things, we basically had PIs who had different focus groups, and it was sort of their opportunity to ask all the questions that weren't being asked anywhere else. Or if they didn't feel like the question was detailed enough, then they kind of reformatted it to get more details. Like, I think some of the resolution we're going to have on things like tobacco use and sun exposure and stuff of that are at a much higher resolution than you typically see in some of these surveys. But it also means now we've got all these unique response variables and unique questions and all these, skip patterns and things that kind of make it interesting. So so if it's not proprietary, it's only, and like the same with all of us, like they started with sort of a group of proposed questions and went through, and then you also go through these processes, of reading level and evaluation of the questions too. So yeah, I don't know proportions. Most of my experience is with surveys that were developed specifically for the study. Although Connect also uses some surveys that are already produced. We use Promise for quality of life. We just started using DHQ for the, daily, I don't know, I forget what these
And
things, but it's
doesn't
basically
isn't
diet
yeah, isn't NAC's
logs. Yeah.
Prepare? NAC has a survey called Prepare, I think, that does social determinations of health,
Hmm.
and I think that one is open.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of them like are designed as their own survey, but yeah, they're pretty liberal. They were developed for other people to use, like especially if they were developed on the government end. So I don't think you run into the same issues with copyright as you do
Yeah.
with maybe things that were developed for a specific clinical study. Yeah.
Yep. Very cool. Yeah, you said you had some wiki pages you could link me to. If
Yeah.
you could send that along, that would be great. Do you need my email address?
Actually, so you should, oh shoot, I don't know. I was gonna say you should have access to the chat, but you might not.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do.
why don't you put your email address in the chat for this, and then I can send those to you. I'll just send them to the whole group. But give me your email address. Did you get the
Yeah.
invite for this?
Um, Probably not. I think I just
Okay,
I check the thing that Elise sends out every
sends
week
out.
to see what's coming up for the week.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so I'll also add you to the invite.
Excellent.
And then that way you'll have it on your calendar too.
And is this is the one that there's one type of meeting you have every other week, and then it's interwoven with a second meeting that happens at a slightly different time, or is that
Yeah,
something
no,
else I'm
we
thinking
do.
of?
We meet at the same time. We meet on Tuesday, 9:30 to 10:30 every other week. And
Every other
so,
week. Okay.
yeah, we used to have Monday meetings, but we had to cancel all the time because of federal holidays. And so
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I need to move this meeting. So yeah, so we don't, I know, like I feel like the CDM group, which is the group we're under, used to have pretty regular meetings, but I feel like those have gotten a little more irregular. And then yeah, like vocabulary has like regular meetings, but also office hours. I think Themis does that as well, like regular meetings, but then also office hours.
All right. Very cool. I'm
So
going to get
cool.
back to work then.
All right. Well, thanks for joining, John. Happy
Yeah.
to have you aboard.
Yeah, thanks for the info, and I'll look forward to those links. Yeah, I'm going
All
to
right.
be presenting at the symposium on the work I've been doing on this project called Polites that automates the installation setup of a complete Odyssey instance. So it
Oh, that's
automates things
right. You
like,
told me about that on the
yeah,
call. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
exciting.
yeah, I can
Cool.
present that at one of these meetings if you're interested. So just let me
Oh,
know.
yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that'd be very helpful. All right. Thanks,
All
John.
right.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your day.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Thanks for
Oh, of
sticking around
course.
and filling me in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Bye bye.